Hello, I'm Eden Flaherty with Global Landscapes Forum, and I'm here today with Hannah Simmons, the founder and CEO of ecosystem Regeneration Associates. Thank you very much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
Cool, so to kick us off, can you just tell us a bit about what Ecosystems Regeneration Associates does and your role within it?
For sure. So ERA is a carbon project developer. So what we do is we use the power of market mechanisms and the power of carbon finance to help us conserve and restore ecosystems, principally in the Cerrado region in Brazil, because of the large deforestation pressures that we're seeing there due to the commercial agriculture that's advancing. So ERA basically takes this carbon finance and works with large farmers on the conservation side to protect large areas of forest that can be legally deforested. And then we take part of those revenues from the sales of those credits and we revert them to the smallholder communities working on agroforestry systems and restoration activities. So we have this sort of what I call a Robin Hood effect.
Mm-hmm. So from what I understand, within ERA you have two major programs.
Yes.
You have the Red Cerrado program and you have the Pollen Co-Benefits program. Can you tell us a bit about each of these, how they relate to each other and how they differ?
For sure. So like I was saying, we have the Robin Hood effect. So the Red Plus program is working with the large agricultural farmers. So they're typically large soy farmers, cattle farmers, and they have areas of land that they can legally convert. Because in Brazil, there's this law called the Forest Code, which stipulates how much land of native vegetation needs to be maintained by the farmer. Mm-hmm. So these farmers have to legally maintain parts of their forests with native vegetation, but there's a large 80% can be deforested in the Cerrado, meaning that there can be this legal deforestation that happens, and if we get to that 80%, it'll be devastating for ecosystems, it'll be devastating for the smallholder communities that rely on these ecosystems, and it'll be devastating for the rivers and the water supply that actually feeds a lot of the population in Brazil. So the Cerrado is a really important biome for that respect. So the Red Cerrado program is a voluntary carbon program. It's a grouped project, so we use the VERA methodology, which is the leading standard for carbon projects, voluntary carbon projects. And then what we have is the Pollen program. So the Pollen program is the restoration program that helps smallholder farmers become more resilient, supports their food security, and supports women's empowerment. So how do we do that? We take a portion of the revenues from the Red Plus program and we revert that to the smallholder communities by implementing agroforestry systems, training these smallholders about agroforestry systems, and actually financing agroforestry systems on their own family farms. So then we go through this whole restoration journey with these smallholders, and in the end, what happens? The farmers now have products that they can sell into the market, which increases their income, which then increases their resilience. So ERA goes through this journey that starts with conservation on the large-scale farms, takes a portion of those revenues to share the benefits with the smallholders, and then we initiate a smallholder transformation journey, all based around restoration, all based around agroforestry. Because agroforestry is really the way of combining mitigation, adaptation, and empowerment. So it's this three-pronged solution that I think is the solution for a lot of our problems.
Okay, cheers. Carbon credit schemes, more specifically the Red Plus schemes, and even more specifically the VERA methodology, has come under massive criticism recently for not having an accurate reflection of how much deforestation is actually stopped.
Yeah.
How are you navigating that, and have you got anything in place to try to ensure that you have got accurate measurements of your impact?
Mm-hmm. For sure. Yeah, so a lot of the scrutiny was for what we call avoided unplanned deforestation, so AUD. We are doing an APD project, which is avoiding planned deforestation. So there's a big difference between how you generate the reference area and the baseline deforestation rate that you apply to the projects. So avoided unplanned deforestation is from deforestation that happens through slash and burn It happens through unexpected consequences. So therefore, it's very hard to determine what a realistic baseline is. There's a lot of different methods that can be applied. And yes, there were projects that applied wrong analysis, and those bad projects are now surfacing to the top. And like any new market, there will be bad projects and bad actors, and those need to be corrected. I think Vera is going through a correction of these high inflated baselines, we call them. But in our project, because the farmer has the legal authority to do that deforestation, and he needs to get a deforestation license, therefore we have a lot of evidence to show what the deforestation rate is. And we have a very strong additionality case because the Cerrado biome has already been deforested 50%. The road access to all these farms is really easy. So the way to get out the products, the cattle, the soy, is a lot more simple than if you're in this land in the middle of the Amazon with no road, no meat packing facility nearby, or no soy silos. So really, the additionality argument for our project is so strong, and because we're at avoided planned deforestation, it's very obvious that the farmer has the intention to deforest. Therefore, you can easily calculate what the deforestation rate is.
From what I read around your project, your company, you talk about the socio-ecological co-benefits of regenerating systems. Can you just explain what's meant by that?
For sure. So when you do a carbon project, there's this whole jargon around co-benefits. And I actually like to call it core benefits, because I believe that biodiversity and social impact is core to the success of a carbon program, not co. So anyways, co-benefits are basically how you share the carbon revenues to biodiversity and to communities. So there's actually a whole methodology that we follow called the CCB methodology, which is community, climate, and biodiversity. So it sets up a framework for how you create a theory of change on how you're going to actually positively impact the stakeholders around your carbon project. So it starts with a stakeholder engagement process where you need to go and actually interview the communities, understand what their needs are, and understand what barriers they're facing. Mm-hmm. And then from that standpoint, you can then create solutions, and you can create an impact strategy that adheres to those needs that they have. So for our project, the biggest need from the smallholder communities, or one of the biggest needs, right, is always income and jobs. So there's not a lot of education, there's not a lot of impact, there's not a lot of opportunity for the people in the field and these rural families. And then if you look at the next generation of farmers, that gets even worse, because the next generation of farmers see their parents struggling, and then they want to go to the city. Mm-hmm. So who's going to be producing our foods if the next generation of farmers are going to the cities, mm-hmm. right? In Brazil, 70% of our food is produced by smallholder farmers. And that might actually be even a worldwide statistic, but I'm not sure. Don't quote me on it. But smallholders are a huge component of the food system. So how do we engage this next generation of farmers? And that is where ERA has created this really amazing impact pyramid impact model we've developed. So we start with generating a partnership with a school. And these schools, what do they have? Small, next generation of farmers, so young farmers. And so we start with creating partnerships with these schools. And then these schools allow us to reach these young farmers. And what these schools do, they're sort of family agriculture schools. So they typically have curriculums about cattle ranching, soy producing, and basically for these farmers, young farmers, to be, ag hands on technical assistance on the farm. And there was no curriculum about regenerative agriculture. Mm-hmm. So what ERA did was, we said, let's do a partnership with these schools so that we can reach this next generation farmer and teach them about regenerative agriculture. So that's what we did. We set up the partnership, and we planted 1 hectare at the school for the kids to actually have hands-on experience about agroforestry systems. So that was sort of the first layer, right? Knowledge and education. If we actually want to build a restoration movement, we need to start with knowledge and education. Because to do agroforestry at scale, people need to know how to manage these systems and implement them. So boom, ERA starts with knowledge and education by doing partnerships with the schools. Then second, of these kids that we reach, there's some that actually their eyes shine a little brighter and they say, you know what, I want this system on my family farm. I think what you guys are doing is amazing and I want to engage in this. So we took 10 of the kids, kids I mean they're like young adults, right? They're like 16, 18, 20 years old. I call them kids. And we go back to their family farm and we actually invest on an agroforestry system on their farm. And then it leads to empowerment, income, and they're actually now producing their own food and having more food security within the family. So you can see this whole catalyzed impact journey that the carbon projects have in a community on a landscape level. So those are some of the social co-benefits that we're doing, and I'd like to talk about the women's empowerment work. So all of our actions are really focused on women. We're women-founded, women-driven company, so that for us is in the core of our DNA. So when we do our projects, we really try to focus on the women in the community to help them create their own agroforestry systems, generate their own products, and then commercialize their own products. So the products that we're planting on our agroforestry system, each of them have baru nuts, which is the special nut from the Cerrado, and turmeric, which is a spice that's super antioxidant and very healthy. So now that you have these groups of farmers producing the same product, you can then commercialize and process easier and then sell easier into the market. So that's our strategy, and the impact pyramid starts with education, then we benefit in finance, and then finally we're empowering through income generation. So that's kind of our theory of change that we've developed. We're really excited to scale it, and we're looking for additional funding to actually provide the momentum and be able to scale our work at a higher and higher level.
Cool. Well, thank you very much for talking me through the project, and best of luck with everything as you go forwards.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you.